In the summer of 2025, Figma has released so many new features. And even though in the past they were all directed towards designers, a lot of the new releases are very code-oriented. The Figma MCP was one of those features. You must have heard about it by now, but maybe you do not understand how it affects you as a designer. So in this video, I'm going to walk you step by step to set up the Figma MCP, to understand what it is and what kind of value it brings to your workflow as a designer. And what are the things that you must do with your developers to ensure that your designs are actually being translated accurately. Have you ever been frustrated by handing off your designs and finding that the code is not accurate? Well, especially now, as developers are beginning to use AI tools to actually generate your designs, it is even more critical that we connect those designs and give context for AI to translate our designs accurately. And that's what MCP means. MCP stands for Model Context Protocol. It's a connection, it's a tool that enables AI tools, AI coding tools to understand your Figma designs better. It gives it a context. If you have seen my other video about different AI tools that are available today, there are so many tools out there that allow you to generate code just by prompting it. That's what's being referred to now as vibe coding or prompt engineering. You can simply write in human language and generate any design. That's good in the context of creating a quick proof of concept. But if you're working in a large company, most companies have invested a significant amount of time to create their own design system. When you have a design system and you're creating a design, let's say for your SaaS application, you actually want the design to look exactly the way you have created it. You also want it to leverage your design system components, your design system variables, all the things that we spent a significant amount of time in Figma creating as designers, and our developers have coded those components in their design system. This is where all these tools fail. I cannot go into Lovable, for example, and generate a design that respects my design system components. None of the other tools will allow me to do this as well. And that's why Figma, that's the power of Figma, because this is the hub of designers. And it is only in Figma that we've built components and our developers have generated and matched those components in code. Today, your developers have started using Copilot if they're using VS Code, or they started leveraging Cursor or another tool that uses an agent to help them code faster. This is where the MCP comes in. When you enable the Figma MCP, the coding agent will become able to understand your design on a much deeper level. Instead of just guessing through a screenshot what you are trying to create, the coding agent will be able to connect with your Figma design, understand the full context of your design system, read your variables, color variables, text styles. It will be able to imbibe all this information and plug it right away in the code that it is generating. There are different types of MCPs. You can attach a database to your coding agent that could be an MCP as well. So Figma allowing and enabling MCP in dev mode is extremely critical to bridge that gap between design and dev handoff. And mind you, they tried to do that at different stages. They tried creating Code Connect before in dev mode just to connect the different components. But in this new AI revolution that recently happened, it's become very critical to have this MCP to allow the context of your design to move to the code. Now that you understand what is an MCP, the first step we're going to do is connect the Figma MCP. And in order to do that, there are 3 steps that we're going to follow from the Figma documentation. There's a little error at the time of this recording in the documentation because Visual Studio has made an update. I'm going to show you that. It will probably be corrected by the time you watch. Do not feel intimidated if you are not very good with coding. It's okay. I will walk you step by step and you'll be able to do this on your own. But please keep in mind, whatever we're doing here is not necessarily something that designers need to do. All you need to do from your side as a designer is to prepare your file properly, and I will address that, as well as share the right link with your developers. Most of the other work is going to be done on the side of your developers, and that's why you need to understand this so you can communicate it to them. Those of you who are both designers and developers, you'll be able to follow along so you can see how to enable the MCP and translate your designs into accurate code. In this video description, you will find a link to the Figma documentation for the MCP server that shows you how to connect the MCP server in Figma. And basically, there are 3 steps. Few things to note. Figma MCP currently works only with the Figma desktop app. So generally, those of you who are using Figma in your browser, this will not work. It currently requires the Figma application. You need to make sure you have the latest version of Figma. So always when you check for updates, you will see if you have the latest version. So the first step we want to do is enable the MCP server in the Figma desktop app. Let me show you how to do this. It's pretty straightforward. If you come under the Figma icon right here, the Figma main menu, and you click on it, you come to Preferences, you will see Enable Dev Mode MCP Server. I have it enabled right now. I'm going to turn it off and then show you. In both cases, once you turn it on and off, you will see there's a notification, a toast at the bottom of your screen. So turning it on once again, coming to Preferences, Enable Dev Mode MCP Server, and you will see it gives you this message that it's enabled, and it gives you the link. Now this link is also available here in the documentation, but that's the first step. Whether it says /SSE or /MCP, which is the case in the desktop app, still, this is the link for the server on your local host on your computer once it's turned on. If you turn on dev mode in Figma, you will see with nothing selected, the MCP server is right here. You can see it's in beta, and you can see it is enabled already. So that's how I know it is working. The next step is to set up the MCP client in the code editor that you're planning to use. In this video, I'm going to walk through how to do this with VS Code because we want to use VS Code with Copilot. There's instructions right here in the documentation for all the different editors, including Cursor. I'm going to VS Code and I started a new file, a new folder. If you haven't used a code editor before, please collaborate with your developers to actually walk through this step. There are multiple ways to install the MCP server inside of VS Code. If we were to follow the Figma documentation, and I will do this just for the purpose of you learning, we will need to go inside the settings and edit the settings by pasting the code they provided for the server. But there are some problems with that, and you'll see it when I walk you through it. But before that, I want to show you the very quick way to actually install the Figma MCP inside of VS Code that was recently made available to people. From inside VS Code, this is where your files normally lie in the main navigation. If you go to extensions, in the search, if you search for @MCP, what will happen is you will have a link here to all the MCP servers available through VS Code. So if I click on this, these are MCP servers available for agent mode. And if I click on Install Figma, it will open Visual Studio and it will be able to install this as an extension. And that's so much easier. But for the purpose of helping beginners do this, let's do it the other way through the documentation as well, so you can learn. So if we were to follow the exact Figma documentation guidance, we would do Command, or go to Code, Settings, and you want to open the settings for VS Code. You want to search for the word MCP. You want to select the step Edit in JSON. According to VS Code, there are 2 places where you can actually add your MCP server inside your settings. This could be on a higher level where it's a user setting, which is the case here, or it can happen in a workspace setting, which is very specific to a certain area. In here, I just want to do it in my user settings, so I always have access to the Figma MCP. So now we want to add the Figma Dev Mode MCP configuration to our servers. So I will copy that and paste it in my settings. So you can see there's a little error in the code that they provided for us. So I'm going to click on Fix using Copilot. I'm going to accept those changes that Copilot provided. The way the code that was given in the documentation is, it didn't like it. Okay, I'm going to click Save. As we're doing this, I'm seeing this new update from VS Code saying MCP servers should no longer be configured in user settings. Use a dedicated MCP configuration instead. And I think that's a new update they just released, because as I was preparing for this video before, we did those configurations in user settings. So this is currently contradicting with the Figma documentation. I'm going to click Update now. And as you can see, it made those changes in mcp.json. And you will see I've already done this before. I've already pasted the Figma server before when I've set it up. So I'm just removing this because it's a copy of it, and you can see the Figma MCP server in my mcp.json settings. VS Code has updated this so that we can do this in a new file, not settings.json. If you look closer at my code here, you will see this word start, and if I actually hover on it, it is something that we can click on. So we can start the MCP server right here from VS Code by clicking on the start. You can see we have access to 5 tools, 2 prompts, and more. So this is step number 2. We have connected the Figma MCP server in our code editing tool. Step number 3 that we need is to prompt the MCP client. And there are 2 ways to do this at the time of this recording. One thing is you can do it on a selection base. So you can have something selected in the Figma desktop app and then prompt your client to implement your current selection. So to demo the selection based, I'm going to come here inside this app. I'm going to select this particular frame, which is a large card, and I will go back to VS Code. And now we want to use agent mode. So to use agent mode in Visual Studio, you can see this is an icon for the agent. So toggle chat will allow you to edit with Copilot and agent mode. If this is your first time using Visual Studio Code Editor, you will see this is the ability to attach context for the agent, to see the current file you're in. And you can prompt things here, and you can see this is the version of the GPT that we're using. There's different settings. There's a mic mode where you can actually talk to it. I will say, use my selection in Figma to create the card and animate the play button. And the moment I've done that, you will see it's running a command called get code from Figma. There are different commands that Figma provides through the MCP server. So now it's asking me, do you want to do this? Because MCP servers could be malicious. And this is something you need to be very aware of. Make sure you don't use an MCP unless you really trust that source, because so much malicious code that could infect your computer could be embedded in an MCP server. But with the Figma MCP server, we do trust that. We want to activate it. So I'm going to click continue. I'm going to click continue. And now it's asking me once again if it can use the function get image as well, which is part of the Figma MCP server. And once again, I'm allowing it to do that. So what it's done is it generated a React component for the Figma card, but we already can see that now there is this connection happening. The second way, which is very familiar to all of us designers, is link based. So you copy a link to your frame in Figma and you actually ask it to implement the exact URL that you have. And you will see here in the documentation, they have different tools that they are calling to the Figma server: the get code, get variable definition, get code connect map, get image, all these prompts allowing the code editor and get all that context. And that's the purpose of the MCP server, to allow for that context. I'm going to go back to design mode, and designers, just for your reference, it's very important that if you're using the MCP, that your layers are named properly. These best practices for design of naming your layers using auto layout will allow the code to be more truthful to your design. It will allow it to execute your designs in a better way and to understand it. Having this app selected, by the way, I've generated this app using the Figma AI first draft. I've asked it to create something really quick. I gave it a prompt and created this app accordingly. And first draft has already named the layers for me. So selecting this frame, I will come here to share. I will copy the link. And this is probably what your developers are going to need to do once you've handed them over a design. They will come to their code, and let's prompt Visual Studio to create this code for us. Now, the get code, if you don't give specification, it will by default use Tailwind and React to generate your design. However, because we want to demo this without actually bothering with building a whole React app, I'm going to specifically prompt it to use CSS and HTML so that you can view things immediately. So use my Figma link to generate the design for a responsive application using CSS and HTML. I pasted the link and I'm clicking on the send button. It's sending the instruction and you will see it's working right now. So it's asking me if I want to create a new HTML and CSS file in this project. And it would have been more helpful if I told it this from the beginning. Yes, create HTML and CSS file in this project. And the reason we need that is, as you can see, in this website test folder that we created, it's empty. So now it needs to generate those two files to put the code in them. So it's telling me the responsive HTML and CSS files have been created in your project. So to open index.html, we can open it anywhere. You can actually right-click on it and click Open With, and you can open it with Google Chrome. Because it's an HTML file, it can be seen anywhere. And that's why we did that. That's why I didn't go to the default, which would be more realistically what you would use. It would be a React app or whatever is your project. So I'm going to keep those two files. It asked me if we wanted to keep them or remove them. We want to keep them, obviously. I have a preview extension that allows me to see things, but if you were just seeing things from your folder, you see this is our originally empty file. Now it has those two files in it. Styles.css is the actual design, it's the actual styling of your file, and the HTML is the main structure of what we created. So to view what we've done, you can even double click on this and it opens it in your default browser. In an attempt to make this responsive, it kind of messed up the icons, but that's okay. It made the rest of the app responsive. It took the design, it took everything here. Now that we've got this working, I want to highlight the most important things that you need to do as a designer so that all this MCP work is actually worthwhile. So first, let's talk about preparing your design so that they are used and consumed properly by the MCP server. This app, as I mentioned before, is fully named. It uses auto layout, but most importantly, if I were to select this header, for example, you will see the selection colors are actually variables. They are variables that I created in this file. If I had a design system that is attached to it, I will be able to attach to the components of that design system. The idea is, when we're prompting the MCP, my developers will get a color that is primary and not simply a hex code. I will show you this in the code. So I'm just gonna start fresh for you to be able to see this without the clutter. I have this item selected. Another way of starting this is you can create a file. So I'm gonna call it index.html. Create my Figma selection as a component and make sure to leverage the applied variables. So when MCP is not connected, do you see it's not able to make this connection? It's not able to understand. The MCP is not on right now. So in order to activate that, I'm going to click on my settings and I will search for MCP. This is the Figma Dev Mode MCP. I want to go there and the start button was not on. So I'm going to click on start again, make sure it's running. I will paste my same prompt again. And you see the first time it had absolutely no context. What am I asking for? But now with the MCP running, it's going through all these details, asking me for permission so that it gets the code. And the second node that it's asking for, the second function it's asking for, is to get the image. Probably it's going to ask for the third function, which is get variable definitions. And that's what will allow it to get the context of my variables or any styles that I have used. So now it's generating that. Do you see right here? It has the applied variables, text, dark, and primary. Those are variables that were created. And this is the equivalent of text styles, branding, all those rules that you have defined in your design system. This is what the Figma MCP allows you to carry, and that's genuinely the real value. So versus getting started from a screenshot where the LLM is simply guessing what it's trying to create, now it has full context. It knows that your root is text dark, this is a variable, primary, this is a variable. And we're going to keep that. Now, knowing this, you need to make sure as a designer that all your designs are fully connected to your design system. If you're leveraging components, make sure that you're using instances of those components. If you're using variables, whether for spacing or coloring or your text styles, you need to connect to all these elements so that the MCP carries that context into the code for your developers. I hope you found this video helpful and that by now you realize the value of MCP and you can confidently recommend it to your developers, even use this video as a guidance for them to connect. I'm very curious to see what you can create, to see your own comparison of generating something with an LLM with a screenshot or when you're using the MCP, how you're able to carry that context. If you have any questions, please share them with me in the comment, and thank you so much for watching.